don't care whether you believe me or not. If you don't, I'm getting up and leaving. I'm no more interested in you than I am in this beer can. You, not I, have been checking with my former acquaintances, and I know they all called me crazy. So be it. I've already realized that people are used to hiding from life behind the shell of their supposed common sense. So be it. It's easier for them. It's more secure for them. But in reality, the biggest lunatic, the absolute idiot, is the one who sensibly considers these pathetic atomic bombs to be the most important secret of our Snezhinsk. You'd have to be completely insane to believe that a defense system like ours was created solely to protect worthless design secrets. Although, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just angry. I just can't get over the fact that practically no one knows the truth yet. I know. Let's agree from the very beginning. I'll tell you everything I saw with my own eyes, and you'll listen to me to the end without asking stupid questions, and I'll tell it the way I want to. For me, not you. You want me to start with, and then I saw. You won't get it. If I'd accidentally stumbled upon the source of the noise, it would have been a beautiful story in the spirit of Indiana Jones, a thriller, an action movie. But I've been working towards this, you understand? I've been working for almost 30 years. I mastered the means. I realized the goal. And then, finally, I realized that this very means was perfect for my purpose. And you'll listen to me from the first to the last word. And if you're lazy or in a hurry, then consider that I've wandered here by mistake. I'm not interested in your reaction or your next steps. I'm not afraid of anyone, and I'm not worried about anything. I already have experience with a psychiatrist, and that's enough to predict my future, down to the last nail. But I repeat, I fear no one. You'll be the first to chicken out from publishing what I'm about to tell you. I was born in Snezhinsk. Well, back then, of course, in the 70s, or rather, even the 50s. Right after Gagarin's launch, that's where my mother gave birth to me. Yes, that's where my name comes from. From a time of universal optimism, universal happiness, and universal pride. My sister, parents, and I lived on Sverdlova in Building 42, which is diagonally across the boulevard from the high-rise near Malachite. Back then, though, that nasty eyesore of a 9-story building didn't exist. But there was a beautiful hill with towering pines. Looking at them, I'd say to my mother, straining my wits, "Mum, I know why the wind blows. Because the trees sway." My childhood was just like any other. Fights in the yard with Yasha, the horse breeder. Uncle Jorah's threats to box my ears when I bothered the adults playing pool too much. Bike rides along the boulevard under the watchful eye of my parents. Our windows overlooked the street. I remember the guys, Leshka Simonov, the Kiryunin brothers, the Buzdigars. They later moved with their parents to Obninsk, and, of course, others. I'll tell you about my first strong impression, which I believe largely determined my future path. At that time, next to my favorite slide, where I spent all my free time, they began building a restaurant, now famous as Malachit. While they were erecting the shell, I was 7 or 8 years old at the time, a general craze broke out in our neighborhood. The idea was to sneak onto the construction site, avoid the guard, jump through a narrow lower window into the darkness of the new building's basement, and climb out on the other side using a board placed there. A typical neighborhood check for lice. Naturally, I was at the forefront, having repeated this feat several times and having become quite at home in the not at all scary space. I one day went a little further, crawled through an opening, and suddenly beheld a magical sight. Fantastic formations rose vertically from the ground, for which, after some effort, I finally found a word already existing in my language: stalagmites. They glowed from within with a strange greenish light, and touching them with trepidation, I realized they were made of ice, and this in the height of summer. For several minutes, I stood completely mesmerized by the sight that met my eyes, and this feeling of secret splendor has stayed with me forever. I still don't know what it was, whether the builders had uncovered some underground cavity containing these wondrous icicles, or whether their formation was due to purely man-made causes. The fact remains, I realized that something lurked underground that could never be accessed by anyone leading an ordinary, above-ground life. Needless to say, from that moment on, I never missed a single construction site in my hometown. I knew every brick and stone at the construction site of the Solnechny store, school number 127, and the first Yubileyny shopping and cultural complex, which, incidentally, was then called Sinegory, and only the pompous anniversary prevented it from retaining its beautiful, romantic name. If you woke me up in the middle of the night, I could recite from memory the locations of the foundation pits of practically every building being laid out on Pobeda Street, describe the rocks that filled these man-made pits. I was fascinated by mineralogy at the time, reading Fersman, and described the utility trenches running from pit to pit. My research was far from rosy. I was repeatedly caught by individuals, mostly law-abiding citizens, from nearby buildings. They lectured me, instilling in me that a good boy shouldn't wander around a construction site where a heavy, hard crane could fall on him. I've detested such coddling since childhood, so I soon realized they were more interested in their own importance than in my health and safety, and that I should avoid encounters with such individuals whenever possible. Looking back, I realize my reasoning was perfectly reasonable for an 8-year-old. One day, a man, having caught me at the construction site of the 6th building on Pobeda Street, grabbed my shoulder like a vice and led me to the police station, which was then located in a 2-story building behind the Vesna store. Since he had no particular reason for transporting me, he, using the careless words I'd spoken en route, complained at the station that I'd called the policeman. Not a word was said about my capture at the construction site. My first encounter with the law was disappointing, as the hour-long conversation between a child and a uniformed adult boiled down to the dreary repetition of a single phrase. Who taught you to call the police that? I took away only one thing: any representatives of authority, and that's what all adults thought of themselves as back then, should be avoided. Time has confirmed the validity of my conclusion. I repeat, my knowledge was not painless, and not only mentally, but physically as well. Once, riding my bike to the construction site of building number 40 on Lenin Street, the third long building from the music school, I didn't notice a heating main trench dug the previous day and plunged into a 2-meter deep hole, bike and all. I'm amazed I survived, because my forehead hit a protruding rock and the bike simply folded in half. I had to spend a long time convincing my father that the curb near the Yolochka store, which I accidentally crashed into, could easily have caused similar damage to my bike. There was another incident during the reconstruction of Gagarin Stadium, when they demolished the old wooden stands and dug a pit for a new one. Days of summer rain filled the pit with water to a depth of 2 meters, and that damned yard boasting compelled me to pile 2 wooden fence boards together and set out on a short voyage that ended in utter disaster. I remember very well the feeling when, finding myself in the water, sinking more and more frequently and surfacing less and less, I calmly thought, well, that's it. I'm going to drown. And I remember the frantic eyes of the man next to me, feverishly ripping off his pants and plunging into the water in his simple boxer shorts. A man to whom I am deeply indebted for the rest of my life, and whom I've been trying to find all these years, to say the thank you I couldn't say on that fateful day. Of course, all this is just poetry, but you must also know lyrics to understand my tormented soul, to understand how irresistibly I was drawn somewhere deep within, to realize that the obstacles in my path did not weaken my thirst for knowledge of the unknown. And in order to finally understand why, one evening I stopped at a construction site in front of another communication trench and thoughtfully said to myself, Yura, it leads somewhere.